welcome to a new episode of the Sportstar Podcast. This is your host, Nihit Sachdeva. It's been quite a while since I've been on the pod, and it feels great to be back. Almost a month. The last episode that I was there on was before the Olympics, and this is post Olympics. Almost 2 weeks after the Olympics, the hangover is sort of still there. And this episode is sort of based on that. Not not exactly a review of Paris Olympics because we've done that quite in detail in print and online. We've covered a lot, but this will be sort of a reporter's diary experience for you listeners, and as well as looking forward to the next edition and what India, can do to change things as far as some sports are concerned, or maybe they can look forward to some sports where they haven't tried, making a mark in some sense. So, welcoming my colleagues on this episode, both of whom were there in Paris covering the Paris Olympics, Jonathan Selvaraj and YB Sarangi. Welcome on the pod, guys. I'd start this show by just asking you guys about your experience as a reporter. You've been in this profession for a while, but still covering a multidiscipline event, I think is a challenge of its own, right? John, you can start us off.
Yeah, I mean it's multidiscipline events are challenging simply because always like there's a chance of couple of events clashing with each other. So we have to decide where we have to give priority. Which is the challenge in a single event sport. You only have to be at one venue. In a multi-event sport, multi-discipline event, you have to if the stadiums may not be close to each other, the timings may be happening at the same time. I mean, they could even like in Paris, I mean like in the 2024 Olympics, they could be happening in cities which are some 300 kilometers apart. So yeah, that I think that is the main challenge of event, multi-discipline event.
Yeah, Sarangi sir.
Yeah, that is obviously one part. A lot of distances to cover. Then you have to take public transport, a lot of time. Then in a place like Paris, where the primary language is French, then you ask someone for some direction or something, he'll tell you. Obviously, honestly, he'll try to guide you, but you understand something else and possibly take the wrong route and travel some 5-10 kilometers, then come back. So there are a lot of logistical issues, practical issues, but overall it was very nice. I mean, the way they did it, I mean, the deliverance of the game was great. And despite the initial challenge of hosting the opening ceremony on a river, and there was always threats. And as we know, the train lines were sabotaged hours prior to the opening ceremony. So overall, they did a great job. I mean, there were some issues, of course, like we all know that athletes were complaining about the games village facilities, including the shortage of food. And I read Arian Titmus, the Australian swimmer, complaining about inadequate supply of toilet paper. So these are also very interesting stories. And recently, I was talking to one of the guys from the federation. So he told me that food was an issue, basically shortage of food. So and obviously, it's also that the sports ministry sent some ACs, portable ACs for the athletes. So obviously, the heat factor was a big factor in major part of the game. So we have to deal with that because we are not used to that kind of heat. I mean, it's very intense and it gets into your skin. So because of the clear skies and lack of pollution. So that was also a challenge. I mean, when you travel a long distance and to get exposed to that kind of sun. So obviously, and especially I'll tell about the archery thing. The archery stands were we know that in the invalid area and so and they put up temporary stand and the media tribune is up there at the top. So you climb up the stairs and you are baked
Baking.
properly. Yeah, even if they had put up small screens on each table, but you can't look at that screen because of the glare. I mean, it was looking dark, even though the action was going on. So you have to do like this to look at the athletes on the field and look at the big screen. Then you run down to the mixed zone, wait there for 30 minutes for the broadcasters to finish their interviews. Then you do yours. Then you run to the venue media center, which is maybe if you take the proper route, it's 200 meters. So these were the challenges. One of the things I liked was temporary venues. We have heard about temporary venues in London Olympics, in Gold Coast Commonwealth Games, but here they set a benchmark. Most of the venues were temporary or they were staged at existing venues facilities. So that was, I think this is the way forward because a lot of concern is there about the rising costs. It's a headache for both IOC as well as the hosting members. So I think this is the way to go forward. I think since India is considering bidding for 2036 Olympics, we have already kind of experimented with it during the national games in Ahmedabad and Gandhinagar. A lot of existing venues were used, and John was obviously there. So we have already experimented with it. If we are serious about hosting a multi-sport event, even if it's Youth Olympics or Olympics proper, this can be a good model for us also, just to cut down on the infrastructure building, which was a big issue during the 2010 Commonwealth Games. I mean, a lot of corruption happened because of that. So I think this is the way forward. And we also know that the Victoria Commonwealth Games, they pulled out after 26 because of this only. I mean, a lot of expenses. So maybe the hosts can look forward for this kind of model in future.
Yeah, the Paris organizers were all in on the sustainability factor, and I think they tried their best. Some of the venues, even though they were temporary, were amazing. Like the archery venue and especially the beach volleyball venue, almost everybody was going crazy over the beach volleyball venue. But there were some complaints also like regarding the cardboard beds in the Olympic Village, and how small the rooms were. So there were complaints regarding that as well. Just taking the conversation forward on that bit before we move on to the next segment is both of you covered different venues, different sports at different venues. Which venue was your favorite while covering the sport? Because I think, John, you were there at the shooting range in Chartres and Stade de France. And sir, you were there in, I think, Invalide for archery and the hockey stadium, and as well as Roland Garros for boxing. So both of you covered different venues, but for you, which was your favorite and why?
Let John start.
Yeah, John can.
I guess the shooting venues were, had probably be the interesting one because obviously it's not part of the main city. It's a different part of France. It's a very, I wouldn't say rural part of France, but it is a provincial part of France. It's one of the smaller smaller cities in France, even though it's like an administrative hub. I think its population is, I think, something like 70,000, which is, when you it seems empty almost when you go there. It has a lot of history, of course, and the range is in, I think the shooting range was built where a former NATO base used to be. So
Oh,
yeah, I mean, like it was different, as in because it obviously it's the Olympics, but it's not doesn't have the same energy of the Olympics. I mean, energy means like the same bustle or hustle and bustle of the Olympics. But obviously, India did quite well over there, and the locals were quite enthusiastic. I mean, even shooting's not the most popular sport, but always the stands are always full. There are always people from the nearby towns and villages who would come and watch the games. So that was pretty interesting, and it was again like it was the Olympics, but it wasn't exactly like what you'd expect from an Olympic. I mean, what you think of an Olympic venue, so that made it quite charming. You would see like coaches, players sharing the same bus as you. Uh, Jaspal Rana and would like I think I was on the same bus with them as on almost all but one day of the competition. So I mean, there were only very specific times where buses would go towards the venue, and then the venue is fairly far off from the city also. And I think the entire town had like two Uber drivers. And so I mean, I mean, that because as in from what I asked people how many Uber guys there were. First, there was only one, and I think one more guy showed up. And that because whenever someone booked an Uber, they would get the same driver. Like everyone got the same driver. So everyone just assumes that the entire town has just one or two of them. Uh, so yeah, as in so like Jaspal Rana will be on the bus with me. Like the Indian physios would always be sharing the same bus as me when we had to go because the schedule they would come every half an hour to the train station. So everyone, if you had to go to the venue, you had to start off at the train station. It would make 3-4 pit stops at different games village. The games village were also like I think one that was like a school which had been converted to a games village. There was one I think purpose built and one was an army base. So I mean it was interesting. It was that was a it doesn't have the same like it's not as iconic as the the when the settings as say are for archery or for beach volleyball, but it was quite charming in its own way.
yeah, YB, yes.
Yes. So I'll mention three centers rather. One is South Paris Arena, and the other one is La Concorde, and the third one is Hockey Stadium. So South Paris Arena and La Concorde, these are like vibrant venues. You go there and you feel that the Olympics are happening. I mean, the South Paris Arena had weightlifting, volleyball, and one was what I think table tennis. So, and it was a festive atmosphere. Everything was there for the spectators. Big boutique shop, to purchase different games-related merchandise. Then food stalls are there, and there is a place to hang out, and some beautiful architecture. I mean, modern architecture, obviously, but these are beautiful. And there is at least couple of 2 or 3 points where you can take good selfies with friends and family. So that was one of the great venues. The other one was La Concorde, which was like all makeshift, but it had all the youth-centric disciplines like BMX cycling. The other one is breaking, and ski into three basketball. So it was more, a fun kind of atmosphere. Like a lot of side shows were going on. You can go in and participate in those things. You can go in and enjoy if you have the ticket. You can go in and enjoy breaking, bit of cycling, bit of basketball. So and a lot of youth, enthusiastic youth, and it was good to see some elder persons also there soaking in that energy and atmosphere. So these are the two standout venues. The other one is Hockey Stadium because of the history. 100 years ago, it hosted the second Paris Olympics. It was the main venue. Now it has been converted into a proper hockey stadium. But one thing I liked about the venue is that one very old building still exists in that on that premises. I tried finding out a lot about the history of the building and its significance. I couldn't actually sadly get anything. But it shows that, yeah, I mean, it's a suburb kind of area in Colombo area, just outside Paris. And I mean, still, I mean, the crowd was like great. A lot of Indian presence or Indian supporters were there. And overall, it was a very nice venue.
Before I move on to what I mentioned in the intro, just one more thing that I want you guys to ask, because both of you covered two very major talking points, which became major talking points through the tournament. One was, of course, Vinesh Phogat missing that weight, on the day of her gold medal bout, which Jonathan, you were covering quite in detail. And sir, you were covering, while you were also covering Indians in action in boxing, you were also observing this storyline unfold of Imane Khelif of Algeria, the boxer, being targeted, and Lin Yuting of Chinese Taipei being targeted for gender. Uh, so I just want to ask your experience when you're covering this multidiscipline event, and at the same time these stories break. What's your like? How do you go about it? I'll start with you, Jonathan. This is something like missing weight. I don't think this is happening for the first time, but missing weight on the day of the final is what we got to know, that this has happened for the first time at the Olympics. So, what was your initial reaction when you got to know that, oh my God, this has happened? And what was your thought process like? How am I going to cover it?
So I mean, like we knew. I mean, I knew one day before itself that this was going to be difficult for her
You
because
had mentioned it in our preview also, like it's a challenge for Vinesh to cut weight.
yeah. I meant specifically the day before the final. Like in the evening, I was talking to someone in her camp, and I was just asking, how is it looking to be? I was basically saying that it looks like I was talking about the Hildebrand uh, matchup, and they were saying that the challenge is going to be in the making of weight. That's when I just wanted to check whether if everything was okay in the morning, because you never know. And in the morning, I got to find out that it is not it's difficult. It's not doesn't look like it's happening. So I checked with someone else in the International Federation. Is there anything like this? Because obviously you don't want to say something like this unless you know it's actually true. So I got confirmation that this was actually the case, and I got some of the. So, like you sort of got more details as the day went on, because then you call more people, you try and find out what exactly is happening. You know the basic thing. Around, so she missed weight by around 7:45, I'm guessing, and by about I think 8 o'clock or 8:10, I found out by around 8ish or 8:10 that this has happened. And the only reason was because I knew, yes, the day before, that it was looking like it was going to be tough. And once the confirmation came in, the first story comes out, then you try and uh, get more detail on what exactly does this look like, what does it mean for the medal. And because it's such an unprecedented thing, no one really knows what happens. Does she not get a medal at all? Does she get eliminated just from the final? So then the next half an hour was just trying to figure out what exactly the rules were saying about it. And I think I'm trying to think if I went to the no, I didn't go to the CAS the same day. I think I went to CAS a few days later. But yeah, as in, like, once that happened, see, I already knew about the weight cut issues for athletes, because it's not something that is happening for the first time. The final may the not ability to make weight that was unprecedented. But unluckily in this case for the athlete, but we were able to find out fairly early that this had happened. And after that was just like a sense of disappointment, because honestly, I believe that Vinesh would have won a gold medal. I think she should have won it very handily. I mean, assuming she made the weight. But yeah, I mean, so one day before we are talking about, like potentially seeing a gold medal ultimate comeback story. And literally, I think 8 hours, not 8 hours, because I think I was about 10 hours later, it's right the opposite. Because I think by around 6, she had sort of gone to I mean, 6 in local time, she had sort of made the final. And by 7:30, 8 o'clock, that's about, okay, 12 hours later, she's finishing last. So yeah, and like proper swing of emotion, even from a journalist perspective, because you're preparing for the final, you're preparing for the kind of story you want to write after the final, as in, is not assuming she wins, but regardless what happened, like even a silver would have been a historic medal in women's wrestling, and that doesn't happen. And of course, at the same time, the other events are also taking place, because you have women's 53 kilos and all happening at the same time. And there also you hear there has been there's been difficulty in making weight. I mean, Antim Pangal was I expected to be one of the main prospects for India in this Olympics. She loses in a very one-sided first round match, and she's crying on the way out. Like you can see, like she's leaving the venue, and she's properly in tears. And like before the match started, I recall she was on the phone very animatedly. She was talking with someone, and I don't know what exactly the context was. There was also some stories that like her sister had been, like stopped at the games village. But although apparently that incident happened later, and there was also this thing that her coach had some altercation with the police. But and that I think, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that may have been the reason why she was so agitated on the phone right before her. So I mean, like nothing went right on that day. It was just like an all-round disaster of a day. Some of the American journalists and all, they were like, "We are so sorry, what happened?" Uh, because I mean, they were kind of, for them it was like a story as well. So everyone was looking forward to Vinesh doing well.
No.
Then it didn't happen. So yeah, that's what you do on a day like that. You sort of have to put your own feelings aside. As in, you obviously are very disappointed as a fan, you want Indians to do well, you want to write on medals and stuff, and then you focus on writing the what actually happened, what are the rules, what this meant. Yeah.
Sir, so you were covering boxing, and something similar happened in boxing. Not exactly, but like you wrote in your story that Nihit Zareen had some issues with like managing weight, and so that was one thing. And the other was, of course, that I mentioned earlier, the whole gender controversy that happened. So can you share your experience of covering both those things?
Yeah. So I was a little surprised when Nihit Zareen told us that she had issues. I mean, she remained at empty stomach, or maybe she didn't have enough food and everything, and obviously that affected her performance. But that is not a surprise. That was a surprise because she has been fighting in 50 kg at least for some time now. I mean, she's a world champion in 53 kg, and I'm not very sure, but whatever I remember, I think Rosa was going on during the World Championships last year. She could do it despite that. And so I was not very sure whether this was only a weight cut effect or something else. But she looked clueless against that Chinese opponent. So we'll find out more when we discuss with her about the Olympics disappointment. Obviously, when she comes back to action. But the other thing was very interesting. The Iman Khalif incident. I mean, obviously, the Indian journalists had no clue about when the Italian walked out or withdrew after 46 seconds. But for the next bout of Iman Khalif against the Hungarian Luka, I was doing something else. I mean, some other venue very far off. Suddenly, I could sense that this bout is going to happen, and maybe I can make it if I start now, because not Paris Arena where the initial boxing rounds were happening, like these are very far off. I mean, it was nearly very close to the main airport, which is like outside the city. So I tried making it, and I reached there in time. So and it was quite an experience, because I mean almost every organization. I mean, I will not say every organization, but majority of the international organizations, media organizations, representatives were there to cover that bout. And that narrow uh, alley of the mixed zone was like packed with hundreds of journalists, photographers, reporters, videographers, whosoever was there, and everybody wanted a fight of Iman Khalif as well as the Hungarian. Iman Khalif spoke to the official broadcaster, and then she walked away. But the Hungarian was brave enough after losing that bout. She spoke to the broadcaster, spoke to the other, I mean, the world media rather, in one word, and the support she got from her Olympic Committee uh, chief. I mean, he was a two-time Olympic gold medalist, and the IOC member of Hungary. It was like fabulous. I mean, the way they stood by her and supported her. And then the most emphatic point of that those statements were like, there is no way they were going to run away from the fight. I mean, so even if there was like complaints in their tones, you can make out that they are not very happy with whatever was
Yeah.
happening. But they were hopeful that after the Olympics, maybe the IOC will sit down and find out some solution. But it was
Yeah.
quite an experience covering that event.
No, even the sports future in itself is in doubt as far as Olympics are concerned. So I don't think this controversy will play any role in deciding if boxing is going to be there. But now I want to move on to the segment that I mentioned in the intro. Looking forward to Los Angeles 2028. Things that maybe some Indian federations can follow, because we had a sort of a success story in shooting. The NRAI, the selection policy, for all the flack that it got during this whole process, I think it eventually did give them some success, like 3 medals and a lot of close finishes as well. John, I want to ask you first. What do you think other federations, like which other federation like can follow something similar, or a similar approach like NRAI? Can other federations follow the same path to work better, uh, or something similar which NRAI did, like this whole selection thing and having this pool of shooters to prepare for this big event?
Yeah, I mean, like it's fairly low-hanging fruit. They've not reinvented the wheel or anything. They've not, done some crazy sort of uh, tactics. They have not applied anything. It was very, very, very basic things, like have like open trials. Winner of quotas have to don't get like such an unfair advantage as they were getting in the previous Olympics, making sure that players were in form, trusting the high performance director who they have appointed. If you go through like a lot of the federations, that hasn't happened. As in boxing, fired its high performance director after one Olympic qualifier, and everyone knew that the next Olympic qualifier was going to be the easier one. But in the haste, they got rid of the high performance director right after. I mean, if you're going to trust someone to work as a high performance director, then give them one Olympic cycle at least. You can't like randomly throw people out, or based on if you don't get immediate results. Similar things in, say, archery. Archery is a sport which is very fairly similar to shooting in it's a very technical sport. You have a lot of archers within India. You like the international level of archery outside of Korea isn't unbeatable. So it's a sport where you should be contending for medals. It's not that getting one semi-final place is not. I mean, even though it was a historic achievement, it doesn't sit right that they can be satisfied with one fourth place finish.
Hmm.
I mean, they had like a lot of problems with their international foreign coaches who they got specifically for the Olympics and then didn't take him for the Olympics. So
Yeah.
I mean, like I mean, athletics. I don't know what to say because right. I mean, like with the exception of Neeraj Chopra, everyone had with the exception of Neeraj Chopra and Avinash Sable who made the final for the first time. I don't
Hmm.
think anyone had like okay. Maybe you can add Parul because she had like a season's best,
Hmm.
but no one else. Everyone else did poorly. Let's be very frank. As in, this is something federation will have to sit down and decide who is in their camp. How are they selecting these players who are even within their camp? I believe the federation is now taking a more standoffish approach. You can train wherever you want, and we'll see you in 4 years' time. Like that's the sort of the policy which they think that they're going to follow now. And I don't know because that seems to be like shirking of responsibility more than anything. But uh, yeah, as in like there's low hanging fruit. Like say archery is like a sport which should like NRIs they should do something with the NRI which the NRI did. They should at least make sure that your trials and all they are happening and they're visible to outsiders. It's not like it's happening in a closed environment of Sonipat uh, Sonipat range. That that your scores are done in a sort of way where you see current form. Uh, that you empower your senior coaches or your high performance. They don't have a high performance director, but it will be good if they have one, if they get one, and they sort of trust in what those guys are doing. You have a new Olympic cycle, and I'm fairly certain that none of this was going to happen.
Hmm. Sarangi sir?
About the archery thing, I just a couple of points. The trials were accessible. Actually, at least I have been to one of the trials, and there is no restriction. And the other one is like they had the high performance director in
Sanjeeva Singh. Yeah.
So the point is, like John mentioned, you hire a coach, the Korean coach, bike, and you hire this high performance director for 2 years, the foreign coach for 1 year. Then suddenly you don't give them accreditation when the team needs it the most. I mean, needs them the most. I mean, just for the Olympics, there is no accreditation for high performance director and the Korean coach. So when you are spending that kind of money and time on these individuals, so they have to be accountable to the overall performance. So when you are not giving them the opportunity to be there in the Olympics, then how can you, seek accountability from these guys? And how do you improve upon that? You have to analyze honestly to improve on that. And as far as I believe, there is some stupid rule in the archery federation that the Indian coaches have to be there at the corner. I mean that defies logic. Basically, one coach who does know everything, that technically sound, he can give good inputs at the right time. Just for the sake of having an Indian coach at the corner doesn't, serve purpose. And we could see that in high pressure situations they faltered the athletes. So this is one major point, and they have to get rid of all the politics, internal politics, and think about getting a medal. So when you set up a foolproof system, then only you get a medal, and it doesn't happen like you do whatever you like and you get medals. So this kind of fourth place, third place, this kind of situations can arise. I mean, when the system is not sound, this kind of we can suffer like this. So that is about archery. I'll speak about hockey because I covered a bit of hockey during that and after that also. So now the Hockey India, what Hockey India did was they did a very good thing after two failures in pro leagues. They didn't do well in World Cup. They didn't do well under Grand Prix, who had led the team to Tokyo bronze after 41 years. So the leadership, they spoke to the players, got their inputs after these two failures. And basing on the inputs they got from the players, they had zeroed in on one German, one Spanish coach, Max Caldas, and but the players preferred Fulton. And so they saw his profile and they were convinced, so this is the guy who can give us good results. And he did wonderfully well in, just over a period of 1 year, getting Asian Games gold and Olympics bronze. So no, it looks easy, but it was not. And now they've started thinking about the 2028 Olympics because they have understood well that if you have to be in the on the right track and get all the support from corporate as well as government, you have to perform and get results. So that's why they are now focusing on 2028 Olympics. And the 2026 Asian Games is a very crucial point where they'll have to, they're trying to get another gold and get a direct qualification for the Olympics. And after that, they'll focus on who are the players who can play in 2028 Olympics, because a lot of the current players, are either on the verge of 30 or beyond 30 years of age. So they have a clear policy at least, and they are also thinking about, they have already planned to revive the Hockey India League, which will give them good young players.
Yeah.
So this kind of clear strategy, clear planning can help other federations who are aspiring to medal at the Olympics. For example, the boxing, they're hopeful that boxing will be there in 28, and they have advertised for another foreign coach. But they have to trust the coach and follow his method. And they have to see that whether his methods are comfortable, not comfortable, but ideal for our players, our boxers. Because the earlier coach, like the high performance director Bernard Dool, he used to have shorter training sessions rather, which was not ideal for the boxers. At least that's what they thought. So when after the Bernard Dool left, there was a little tweak in the sessions, and they were given some 15-20 minutes individual time so that they can work on their game. So this kind of, you have to involve the players, take their inputs, and build a good plan for the Olympics. And you have to trust the man who you are hiring. So these are the basic things, and the sport-wise, the needs also change. So the federations have a big role because there is no dearth of earning. The government is ready to spend whatever number. You are going to court. So, and same with weightlifting. There is nobody after Mirabai Chanu for 2028.
Last two questions before we wrap this session up. First, sir, I'll come back to you again. What about these initiatives, Khelo India and university games? Are we getting enough talent out of these initiatives, or do we need more to prepare the next batch?
See, Khelo
Are
India
we getting
is a good
enough funding? Are we getting enough training that an ideal future Olympian should get from the early stages of their career? Are we getting that enough?
See, Khelo India once in a year or twice in a year, if you consider the Khelo India University Games, or maybe the sport-specific Khelo India events happening around the year. These are tournaments, these are championships, small events. If you look at the bigger picture, for age group, obviously, age group people. But is there a plan by the federation how to proceed to the next Olympics? It's a 4-year cycle. And how you're going to get top athletes out of your system? That is a crucial thing. These are the support systems, but you have to have your own grassroots program, under 17, under 19, whatever. How sport I mean, according to the need of the sports. So basically, you have to have your solid grassroots program, and you have to build on that. You cannot be dependent on the Khelo India to produce a lot of youngsters who can go and get us medals in the Olympics. So it can be a good support system, but not be all and end all kind of initiative.
John, last question. I think this is a good way to wrap up this episode. Should India be targeting the sports which everyone talks about once every 4 years? Like, oh, these sports have so many gold medals, but India doesn't even care. Like sports like swimming and cycling and gymnastics. Should India have a targeted approach? Like, some system should be there so that you can produce some sort of talent in these sports where there are a lot of medals on offer.
Yeah, even if we do, it's not going to happen in one Olympic cycle. I mean, it's very rare that it happens in one Olympic cycle. There are certain sports where you can make a difference in one cycle, like shooting, like archery, maybe rowing to some extent. But most of the other swimming is not, because it's such a competitive sport worldwide. It's not something that you can achieve excellence. Like Olympic medal is achieving excellence. It's not a sport you can achieve excellence within 4 years cycle because everyone else is so competitive. The sports where you can actually do sort of well are the sports where the global standard, the number of countries who take part in the sport seriously are not that high. So shooting is one of them. Archery is one of them. There are you cannot think that in one Olympic cycle you'll become great in gymnastics or swimming. Because the global standard is just way too high. It's at a very high level, will not catch up to that. Maybe eventually long term you might find a way to do it. But even if you see the players from, you'll say that, okay, Algeria doesn't have like a women's gymnastics tradition. How did they get a medal? Because a girl is not Algerian. She's half French.
She's French. Yeah.
Training in France. Similarly, for the Filipino guy who got 2 gold medals in gymnastics, he's training in the US. Like all the swimmers who do well from other countries, they're mostly training in the NCAAs. They're basically citizens, born and raised over there. So you're not going to get any great results in swimming in 4 years. It's not happening maybe 8 years if you try really hard, maybe in cycling.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Like some targeted approach, maybe a long-term plan for these sports, cycling.
But long-term plans I don't think we do that very well over here. You can start off with a plan, government changes or government has different priorities and the plans disappear. So we had a cycling plan for a bit. We were doing fairly well in the junior level, and I don't know if it's the players who are juniors are still competing. So there's no new talent has not come up. So I think there are sports where we have a head start already. We're already at we have a base developed already, like badminton and wrestling and shooting. There's no shortage of medals in these sports either, and we can't start chasing like 20 gold medals. Let us win like 1 or 2 first, and then we can think about seeing the hope, looking for hope in swimming pools. Let us first we can get our basic, what we already have. Let's put that right first. There's lots of low hanging fruit right now instead of having to chase things like swimming and gymnastics. You can always you can always plan to do well in those things, but you shouldn't depend on them, at least in the next Olympic cycle.
YBS, you have something to add on this?
Yeah, it's absolutely correct. You cannot be producing world champions and Olympic world medalists in 4 years. It has to be at least 8 to 12 years period. And if we are thinking of bidding for 2036, then we have to groom 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds right now. I mean, there is no time. And it's already time. I mean, we started doing this. And as John said, I mean, if you are planning 10 years, 12 years, I mean, whatever. So again, the responsibility lies with the federations. I mean, they have to devise a plan. They have to work on it. It has to be foolproof. You have to trust the personnel you are hiring. It cannot be just government pouring in money and they will be producing world champions in a meal. I mean, it's not. It doesn't happen like that. And some of the most followed sports like athletics, gymnastics, swimming, these may look good. Yeah, where here there are so many medals, but
So many
the
medals,
competition level is so high. We are ridiculously behind in those sports. I mean, we are nowhere. Absolutely, we are
Yeah.
getting 2 quotas in swimming because of I mean, whatever you say. I mean, just because
Universality thing.
there is some compassionate quota or whatever quota is
Yeah.
there. I mean, I'm just forgetting, but this is the right term actually. So basically, the federations have a big role to play, and our federation is still sleeping. So most
Yeah.
of them are. So when they wake up, when they do the right thing, obviously the results will be there. Thankfully, in wrestling, because there is a lot of enthusiasm at the village level in certain pockets. So and after, especially after the medals won by Sushil Kumar and Devesh Sardar, I mean, there is a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of hope in the wrestling belt.
Yeah.
So now people are, and also later the Sakshi Malik and Geeta Govita Fogart. So they I mean, raise the hope and self belief in lot of these girls. So thankfully we have saved. At least there is some contribution from wrestling from 2008 onwards. But and the shooting also, like, we do well. Unfortunately, we couldn't land a medal in Tokyo Olympics, and we fought against three. So, but shooting is always like a very decision sport, and in fact, son of a second, we have seen in this edition also. Your luck plays a lot of. You have to be a little lucky also, not just performing. So, I mean, where you can win a lot of medals, we are far behind, and where we are good, we are not really focusing. And wrestling has been going through a lot of hell. Because of protests and whatever. I mean, this is unfortunate for the sport and the sports person. So, and same with boxing. Like boxing, we could have won some medals, and there are talented sports boxers in our country. But there has to be a systematic and foolproof system to lift the sport. So basically, the onus lies with the federation, and they have to wake up.
Just add one final thing, as in, like, we are always hopeful that we'll do well in wrestling and shooting and all. I think we are forgetting that we have sort of forgotten that cricket is in the Olympics as well this time.
Oh yeah. So 2 gold medals are confirmed.
Right over there. So
yeah.
Maybe we worry too much.
And
But
you
that-
can't
that-
predict
but that-
can't predict
if
much
that-
about squash also.
If that
squash as
happens,
well.
then if that happens, then obviously I want that to happen, but that will also set back to the other federations, the intentions also. Like okay, so we have got a lot of we have improved in our position in the medal tally, so we can sleep for 4 more years and do nothing.
All riding on cricket's shoulders.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's a good way to wrap up this episode. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you had a great Olympics, memories of a lifetime. Thank you so much for joining. And the Olympics, like the second part is in Paris, is yet to happen. The Paris Paralympics are starting from 28 August. They're starting and they'll continue till September 8th. And we at Sportstar will be covering this event as well. As far as this episode is concerned, this is it. Thank you so much for joining. If you like this episode, please share it with your friends and family. This is Nihit Sachdeva signing off, and we will be back with a new episode next week.